Hey there! Thanks for tuning into Duckbricks, and welcome to a brand new episode of the show where I review every single LEGO Ninjago set wave from the end to the beginning. So far, since we just kickstarted this series, we've really only looked at Season 14, The Island, and we've also done a Legacy Lookback series, taking a look at all of the Winter 2021 Legacy sets that had previous counterparts one by one. And so, today is the culmination of all of the past weeks of Legacy Lookbacks. Today we're going to be ranking the Winter 2021 Legacy Wave and seeing how it compares against the other sets. I also will be including in this video any Legacy set that was released for this wave that doesn't have a prior counterpart, such as the Epic Battle sets as well as the Ninjago City Gardens. In this video, we'll also be taking a look at every single minifigure from the 2021 Winter Legacy set line, so be sure to stay tuned for that, and thank you all for tuning in. Let's head on over to the studio and take a look. Alright, so here we have all 11 Winter 2021 Ninjago Legacy sets. 10 of these came out on January 1st, and the final one, a 4+ set, came out on March 1st. These sets, to give some background, were created to celebrate the 10-year anniversary of LEGO Ninjago. As such, we got a massive $300 D2C to sets covering a generally pretty full range of Ninjago's history. Starting off with Season 2 with the main big bad of the Overlord Dragon, a much requested set, moving on to Season 3 of Rebooted, Season 4 Tournament of Elements for these builds here, and even entering Season 5 territory for the first time for Ninjago Legacy with Zane's Possession mech right here. We also got a host of new gimmick sets, the $10 Epic Battle sets, as well as a ton of brand new minifigures for 2021. In fact, I've arranged all of the new minifigures that we got for this wave on this plate. Now I will note this isn't all the minifigures that you would get from these sets, just the new ones for 2021, and there are a lot more than usual. But without further ado, let's just dive in and start talking about this wave as a whole. In continuation with the previous installments of this series, I will be rating this wave on a few major points. Number one is general quality of the builds. So am I happy with the build quality? Am I happy with the different styles that have been used throughout the construction? And in general, are these sets pretty good quality overall? The second point is diversity. Now, for previous reviews of Ninjago waves, this usually consists of the builds being different and unique compared to what's come before, and generally trying new things rather than just rehashing old concepts. That being said though, since this is a Legacy wave, the entire point of Legacy, for at least the mainline sets, is, well, to rehash old set concepts. So I'll be taking the diversity point in a different direction today, and instead be offering direct comparisons of these sets to their Legacy or previous counterparts, and seeing if they provide a substantial improvement, or if an improvement really was even needed, or maybe I was just happy with the older sets and feel like one of these set spots could have been taken up by something else. The third point that we're going to be discussing are the minifigures. So specifically, the new minifigures, are they good compared to the previous minifigures? Are the new ninja suits good compared to what's come before? And in general, do we have a pretty decent range of new characters and minifigures that we haven't gotten before? And finally, number 4 is affordability. Now, I'll be ranking affordability across a few different things. Typically for standard Ninjago waves, my big question is, what is the cheapest combination of sets that can get me the entire ninja team? That being said though, for Legacy, the ninja minifigures are pretty scattered throughout, and it's not like they all get a brand new suit. So this time, I'm generally going to be looking at the new minifigures, which ones are the most valuable, and saying, does it make sense how they're distributed in these sets, such that affordability is a decent point to gauge this on. In addition, I will also be ranking each and every set individually based on how I feel it fits the price, and whether or not the price given to the set is a good one or a bad one. And as usual, we'll be collating that data at the end of the video to give the final score. All in all, once we're through all those 4 key points of rankings, we will place the Winter 2021 Legacy Wave on our Ninjago Wave ranking table, which you can see up on screen right here. And of course, there's only one entry in it so far. It's the Season 14 Island stuff. So the big question is this better or worse than what came out with the Island? And then we'll be doing the rankings from there. Now, just one thing before we get too deep into each individual set, I actually did a legacy look back video of every single individual legacy set, so we won't actually be going through each of the individual ones for this video, at least the ones that I've already done videos on. Stuff like the X1 Ninja Charger or Zane's Titan Mech Battle, all sorts of stuff like that, even the Overlord Dragon and Tournament of Elements. All of them that had previous depictions in the Ninjago universe have already been covered in the Legacy Look Back series, and I've also done a very in-depth coverage of the Ninjago City Garden set, highlighting every single Easter egg in that set for another separate video. All of those are linked in the description below, so obviously go check those out if you want my super in-depth thoughts. This video is meant to be more of a roundup where I just share my thoughts on the entire wave as a whole and talk about the ones that weren't covered in Legacy Lookbacks. So definitely will be going over some of them, but not all of the in-depth details of every single one. So if you do want to see the comparisons, again, go check out those videos. But without further ado, let's just dive right into the first set, which didn't actually get a Legacy Lookbacks or any sort of other video. These are, of course, the 4 epic battle sets featuring a ninja versus an enemy. Let's go. Okay, so here we have the epic battle sets. Each of them retail for $10 a piece and come with 2 minifigures, some of which are exclusive to these sets. Specifically, the epic battle ninja outfits are exclusive to these sets, and for now, the Serpentine from Jay vs. Serpentine is exclusive to this one set, although I have a feeling that we'll be getting that minifigure in other places somewhere else. Technically, the Ghost is so-called exclusive, although he's literally identical to the Soul Archer Ghost, which also comes in the Zane's Titan Mech. They literally are the same figure, it just depends on what accessory you give them, so I don't really count that as exclusive. Finally, the Whiplash Skeleton minifigure technically is exclusive because he has some eyebrow printing. Previously, he did not have any eyebrow printing. Honestly though, they're so small, it almost feels like an afterthought or something that was thrown in to modify the print just slightly, so I don't even consider it to be different, and LEGO themselves don't even consider them to be different minifigures from what came before. So all in all, you're seeing 4, maybe 5 exclusive figures here, which is generally pretty nice because typically the $10 sets only come with 1 exclusive minifigure and maybe some sort of a spinner or something like that. This time we're getting 2 minifigures, one of which is exclusive for most of the sets, and this one has 2 exclusives, as well as a small side build, which admittedly you can't do much with. The epic battle sets also came with a variety of these spinner pads here. They were introduced in 2019 for the Legacy line. These are much simpler versions of them, but essentially how they work is that you take a figure, place them on the end, and then you can kind of roll them around and pretend they are doing spinjitzu by attacking, just by nature of the tire going across the ground. I will say it's a pretty fun play feature, but they do include these in quite a few sets, so it can kind of get old if we just have a ton of them lying around, but it is still nice that LEGO included them as an action feature. Of course, you'll probably notice they also have these brand new molded weapons. Specifically, they are meant to look like the 4 weapons of spinjitzu except in motion. I think the concept behind these is really cool, but I also feel like they probably would have been better off being dual molded. For instance, let me take Jay's weapon here and just show it all the way up to the camera. You'll notice that on the tip of the nunchuck, it's literally the hilt of the nunchuck, but just placed in a upwards motion and molded in transparent green. Unfortunately, a lot of this detail can kind of get lost in the blur, and it almost looks like this is some sort of an axe despite it's supposed to represent this swooshing through the air. I can imagine these are amazing for people who are into making stop motion movies and actually using them for stop action photography, but having these motion weapons be in a still format feels a little bit strange to me, honestly. Kind of feels a little bit awkward, especially when you get to something like the shuriken and it literally just looks like a transparent blue shuriken, but somehow asymmetrical because one kind of extension or motion blur line is sticking out a little bit further than the rest. Kind of an awkward looking piece, if I'm gonna be honest, but some of them do work out better than others. I think the sword, having the sword swooshing through the air, this works out a lot better than, say, the nunchuck, which does feel quite awkward with the piece not being sure exactly where you should be pointing it.
However, I will say that again, they're pretty nice pieces to get, but if they were dual molded and the inner parts were gold, I feel like it would have worked out a lot better, because imagine having a gold weapon with this transparent green elemental energy or transparent elemental energy spiking off of it. I feel like that would have been a lot cooler than what we got, in which case it's kind of hard to make out visually exactly where the weapons are in this. I also do want to note something about the suits, and I will be mentioning this later on when we talk about the ninjas' outfits for the minifigure section, but I'm a little bit confused as to exactly what they're supposed to represent. Kai's in particular feels like it could be maybe some callback to his blacksmith outfit, but not really sure why he's just wearing the white top over there. They actually added in a lot of extra detail onto these. They all have unique printed legs and torsos, and I honestly feel like it was a bit of a missed opportunity to instead maybe give us throwback minifigures based on different seasons of the show. Just imagine an epic battle set featuring Kai in his blacksmith outfit from the pilot seasons. Maybe it could have Jay as a pirate for the Skybound stuff and instead have him face off against a sky pirate. We maybe could have had a battle damage Zane from Rebooted, finally giving us some sort of a variant on the Legacy 2 outfit, and even a Cole who is a full ghost, which I think would have been an also pretty cool thing to have him fight against a ghost for the Possession wave. Unfortunately though, we get these outfits which are kinda in between, not really sure what they're supposed to represent, and I actually looked up the designer interviews, the people who designed these, and they specifically said that they were just told to make random training outfits for the ninja. Kai's is actually an anime reference based on an outfit normally worn by different characters in anime, so really a strange choice to me why they went in that direction. If they have the budget to make brand new prints for the torsos and legs, why not spend that budget on making something actually show accurate to celebrate 10 years of Ninjago? Just feels a little strange to me. The other thing is that the villains, I do actually also feel like maybe this might be pushing it a little bit in terms of budget, but would have been really nice to have them actually face off against named enemies. I think Kai versus, say, a Samukai would have been awesome, but definitely that's not very much within the realm of possibility because the mold is long discontinued and they'd have to put a lot of budget into making a new mold. Still, would have been nice to see actually some named characters here rather than just the generic foot soldiers, which we're going to get or have gotten in many other sets before. Stuff like this generic Nintroid becoming General Cryptor, or this snake becoming Scales, or maybe this ghost becoming Morrow, or even Sensei Yang, which you could have pulled off without having to introduce any new molds. Something like that I feel would have made it a lot more personal to celebrate the 10 years of Ninjago, actually having them fight previous villains. But with that said, it is still good value, I will say, having these be $10 with 2 minifigures featuring a set of brand new molds, an action feature, and even some scenery builds. I honestly can't complain too much about the price. Which is why in terms of value, I'm going to give these ones an 8 out of 10. I think that it could have been better if they had the budget to make new torso and leg prints. Why not actually use that to make stuff relevant to the show? But it's not bad, and getting all of this for $10 a piece is not bad at all. So kind of a mixed range there, but it's definitely objectively good value, although personally I wish that they could have done a little bit more stuff. But now let's step away from this and start to talk about our next sets.
Just a quick recap of the previous Legacy Lookback videos for this wave before we move on to the minifigures and the Ninjago City Garden set. I just want to quickly recap what we discussed there, starting off with Jay's Electro Mech. This was a 4+ set based off of an original set from 2015 for Tournament of Elements. I felt like this one wasn't really a fair comparison to the original, especially because, again, this is meant for smaller kids. Despite being the same cost, this one actually does come with a little bit more. It has a full-on enemy vehicle, and even some semblances of scenery with rocks, but again, obviously I do feel like the original one, while definitely flawed, is still much better than this, but again, it's not really fair to compare them because this is a junior set. The only thing I do wish that they changed was the razor saw on one of the arms there. I felt like it would be a lot more accurate to the show and to the original set to just include some sort of a launching feature, and they did actually include one of the Junior's 4+ cannons in the set, which probably would have made a little bit more sense on the arm of the robot rather than on the enemy vehicle itself. Moving on though to the $30 Tournament of Elements set, I was very pleased with this set, especially with the minifigure selection but also the quality of the build.
I loved how accurate this was to the show, and the little Easter eggs sprinkled within, like the Jade Blade hidden inside a vase, I felt was a very nice touch. Of course, it's really fantastic to get a lot of the missing Elemental Masters, and again, we'll dive into that a little bit more in minifigures. The only thing that I do wish they included was maybe the missing Elemental Master. There's only one missing one now, which is Camille, the Master of Form. Alternatively, they maybe could have made a Legacy Klaus, which wouldn't have required any new molds, just probably new prints, because they even do include Klaus's spellbook. This is one of the many sets that includes the same exact Anachondri minion, and it's getting a little bit old already. Moving on from that, we can talk about the $30 Overlord Dragon set. I was generally very pleased with the set in about every single way other than the wing construction, which I did feel was a little bit rudimentary and almost very backwards for LEGO to still do that same wing technique that they used in 2013. You would have thought they'd have better wing techniques by now, and they actually do. We've seen much better ones in terms of fabric or vinyl wings. I'm just guessing that the budget didn't allow for that. However, one of the biggest things that I did wish that they did with this was instead swap the price point of this set with Kai's X1 Ninja Charger. We'll get to that, but that was a $50 set representing a set that used to be $40 that really honestly could have been scaled down to $30 and it probably would have been just as fine. So I really do wish that this set got a little bit extra budget, especially because it's probably the only time we'll ever get an Overlord Dragon set throughout Ninjago's entire run unless they decide to bring back the character, so it does feel like a bit of a missed opportunity not to have something a little bit more bigger and special. Moving on though, from this we can take a look at the Boulder Blaster, the $40 set for Cole. This one again I was generally okay with. I didn't feel like it was a substantial upgrade over the previous one. In many ways I did feel like they probably could have made it at the same price point again. That being said, there are some tangible upgrades such as the thickness and detail on the back wings, and of course the rotating gun has actually expanded out in radius, although I'm not necessarily sure if that was even needed for this model because again, the original works just as fine. Moving on though, we get to the $50 Kai's X1 Ninja Charger. Unfortunately, I felt like this one was not only the weakest of the wave, but potentially one of the weakest legacy sets ever. I really was not too impressed with the function, which honestly just didn't work too well for me. Of course your mileage may vary, but it really just couldn't function even multiple times on camera. I could not replicate a solid action feature of launching the motorcycle from the car, which was especially disappointing because the original set, which was cheaper than this one, accomplished that feature much better, and the motorcycle that ejected was even a lot better than the one for this set. This one also had a number of strange downgrades, such as not being able to rotate the missile pods on the back, and completely removing one of the most defining features of the build, both in the set and in the TV show, which was the massive single jet exhaust in the back, instead being replaced by just a simple 2x2 round disc. Then moving on from this, we can take a look at the $60 Zane's Titan Mech Battle. This one again is a bit of a tough comparison because the original set, which was also Zane's Titan Mech Battle, was $60 but included 2 mechs. This one has about as many parts, and obviously all those parts go into one fantastic giant mech, which again, I will say is one of the best mechs Ninjago has done at this scale, especially with the inclusion of knee joints. I just can't help but wonder that in terms of play value, would it have been better to instead have a redesigned version of that original set and have 2 mechs face off against each other? Because right now, Zane's Titan Mech Battle is a massive mech versus 2 ghosts, which didn't quite feel fair to me.
Alright, so with all these standard Ninjago sets covered, it's time to look at the massive D2C Ninjago City Gardens. Now I do want to add that I actually did an in-depth review of Ninjago City Gardens, or it was less of a review and more of an Easter egg highlights video where I highlighted every single little Easter egg for the show throughout the set. That was a pretty comprehensive overview of the entire set as a whole, I will say. So for this very quick look, I'm just going to be talking very briefly on value and what I think of the set. And then, of course, go ahead and check out that video linked in the description below if you actually want an in-depth look at Ninjago City Gardens. But let's now take a look at this set.
Alright, so we've reached the final set, Ninjago City Gardens. This is one of the most fantastically detailed sets to ever come out of the Ninjago line, and was an excellent return to form after not having many Ninjago City sets over the past few years, especially after the Ninjago movie set's time period kind of ended. We have a whopping 22 minifigures in the set if you count the additional statues, ninja suits, and displays here, and out of all those 22 minifigures, a ton of them are unique. From the unique casual ninja to a new Ronin, new Misako, the mechanic, his henchman, Golden Wu, Master Chen's mascot, even a statue of Zane. All of these are really fantastic minifigures, and despite some repeats in the form of Kai and Zane in their standard legacy outfits, there's a ton of new stuff here to enjoy. But of course, the minifigures are only one very small part of this. The main build is the main thing to consider. As I mentioned at the start of the video, I do have a separate review for the Ninjago City Garden set where I go very much in depth into specifically the construction of this, every single Easter egg in every single room. So I'm not going to do that for this video, and I'm just going to give a brief overview, especially because if anyone wants to hear my in-depth thoughts on the set, you can find it in that video there. All I have to say about this one though is that the value is definitely worth it. $300 for a fantastically detailed set like this really does feel like a steal, especially when compared to many other LEGO sets like the UCS line of Star Wars. Really just great value all in all here. I really do love how every single store has a story. For instance, on the bottom storefront here, it's not just hollow. Ronin's pawn shop there is just packed jam full with references to the TV show and other appearances of Ronin. Even moving up to this main area here, nothing in this build is completely hollow. Every single floor of the store tells a unique story. This museum here, you can see all sorts of details, from the Griefbringer dragon from the Season 13 line, all the way to a mini Destiny's Bounty inside and different paintings as seen in the TV show. Even moving on, we've got some excellent references to older LEGO sets with the Ice Planet Ice Cream Shop right here, as well as Chen's Noodle Shop, which is really great to finally get in LEGO set form. There are references adorning every single sticker here, from Time Cruisers to Hands of Time, to Prime Empire, to an internal LEGO code in terms of what elements can be reused, even stuff like LEGO Snap and references to the original line of Ninjago City can be seen here, just all sorts of really crazy stuff. And even as you go down to the bottom levels, there's so much detail to be seen and great parts usages. I cannot rave about this set enough. Honestly, there's nothing really bad I can say about this set. It's probably one of my favorite LEGO Ninjago sets in a long time, even one of my favorite LEGO sets in a long time, and having so many unique minifigures is just icing on the cake. Also, the inclusion of this small shrine build to honor Zane's memorial is a very nice touch, and I'm so glad this actually made it into the set, especially after first initial images of this came out and we weren't sure if that was actually going to be a part of it. All in all, this is a fantastic LEGO set I would highly recommend for anyone not even interested in Ninjago, just interested in LEGO or wanting a unique building experience to pick up this set because it is a fantastic centerpiece. It looks good pretty much from every angle. Even the backside is fully covered up, so this is just a fantastic set overall. Can't say enough about it. The quality, obviously, 10 out of 10 for this set. The value for money, also 10 out of 10. Again, the price tag may be a little bit off-putting, but if you're willing to spend this much money on a LEGO set, this is the set to spend it on. I think it's probably the best $300 LEGO set in a long time.
Alright, so here we have a small board showcasing all of the brand new minifigures for this wave of 2021 Legacy sets. I do also want to note that there was one more minifigure, a skeleton Whiplash, that is technically new. He had some different eyebrow printing from the last one. However, since that's such a minor variant, I decided not to cover that one in the new minifigures and instead focus on what exactly is actually new for this wave. So to kind of break these down into groups, we have 5 brand new Golden Ninja. These are made to celebrate the 10-year anniversary of LEGO, and we will be getting the 2 missing ones, namely Nia and Zane, in gold for this wave of summer Legacy sets. We also got brand new quote-unquote epic battle outfits for Kai, Jay, Cole, and Zane. Unfortunately, Lloyd and Nia did not get any of these. However, instead, we got a new young Lloyd minifigure. Now, I do want to say that this
version of young Lloyd is technically not new except for the hair. The regular torso is just the standard Green Ninja torso from the Legacy 1 line, just some standard short green legs, and the face was taken from the newer young Lloyd minifigure which debuted last year in the Destiny's Bounty, featuring his darker outfit before he was an ally of the ninja. Still, it is really nice to get this minifigure, especially with the show-accurate hairpiece, so that definitely counts as new. Strangely enough, the only Nia figure that we're getting for Legacy is just one in a casual outfit. Unfortunately, this one is a little bit inferior to the previous casual Nia, as we're going to take a look at in a second, because the specific outfit is basically the same as the old one from the Ninjago movie, but instead of having a neat ripped jeans printing on the legs, instead this one just uses the standard blue legs, so kind of unfortunate there. However, where civilians are concerned, we are getting a brand new civilian Jay. This one actually is a lot nicer just because of the way that they actually gave him a brand new print to kind of signify the two buttons that he has on his standard Secrets of the Forbidden Spinjitzu suit, or the main suit that all the ninja use throughout the seasons. Seems like he's transferred those buttons onto his shirt, so it's kind of a neat detail for Jay. What's really special though are the non-ninja minifigures. For the first time ever, we are getting a minifigure version of the Mechanic. The Mechanic was a secondary villain which first appeared in Skybound. He later appeared in Season 8, Sons of Garmadon, and had a much larger role throughout Season 12, Prime Empire, to the point where I was kind of wondering exactly why we hadn't gotten a figure of him before. Unfortunately, this figure does not feature a brand new dual molded head. Instead, it just uses the standard bowler piece and printed his monocle on. In the show, as you can see here, he actually had a different mold for the face, as well as a unique mold for the arm, but I get it not having to introduce new molds for this figure. However, it still would have been nice if, say, he recolored the arm that the Justice League Cyborg minifigure used, for example, because I feel like that would have fit his arm quite well. Regardless, it is very nice to get him as a physical character, and he even comes with one of the henchmen, which you can actually see with him in the show. Moving on to other newer characters, we are getting 3 brand new Elemental Masters. Now, a lot of people have been clamoring to get these guys as minifigures, myself included, and it's definitely really nice to get them. To start off, we have Gravis, who is the Master of Gravity. We were first introduced to him in Season 4, Tournament of Elements, but are only finally getting a minifigure here. He even has 2 facial expressions, one very concentrated and eyes closed, and one with his eyes open in a more traditional face, which you may see on the show. It's really nice that they actually gave him a brand new torso print, head print, and a new colored turban, because I really do feel like the minifigure would have been complete without them. Although unfortunately, it wasn't a special new mold featuring a symbol on his head there, but I can understand why they didn't do that.
What would have been nice though is that this is just an extra added detail, doesn't really need to be there, but Gravis unfortunately does not have printed legs. Actually, the legs that he uses in the show do exist. They are from one of the Lord of the Rings minifigures, specifically the Elrond figure, from all the way back in the day when Lord of the Rings was still coming out. You can see those legs right there are very similar to the ones that he used in the show. Obviously, that piece was no longer in production, and it doesn't make sense to bring it back for a character like this, but it still would have been nice to get at least some leg printing for this character. Jacob Pevsner, the Master of Sound, gets equal good treatment. Of course, this is just the standard guitar colored in white. They didn't actually make a new mold for the sitar, but still nice to get. It's essentially the same color that they used for the black and white Mickey Mouse Fairy Ideas set, but it's nice to see that make a return. And of course, he gets a brand new torso and head print. Specifically, this one is done in teal, so that's very nice to see. And he gets a dual facial expression as well. Unfortunately, the weakest of the 3 is probably Bolobo here, mostly because of the fact that he does not have a unique face, and it's very, very distracting, especially compared to what was seen in the show. You'll notice that the head is literally just the Jack headpiece from Hidden Side. Honestly, this feels so strange to me because it looks absolutely nothing like Bolobo from what we saw of him in the show. He had large, bushy eyebrows to match his large beard and hair, and none of that is seen here. Really strange how they picked a face that was used on a very young character with no facial hair to be placed underneath a beard. Seems like kind of a misfit here, and honestly, any of the other minifigure head molds with more bushy eyebrows would have been better here.
The other thing is that his torso doesn't actually match the show at all. Despite having this feather here, which does match the show, he is pretty much bare-chested here. He has some tattoos printed on his chest. If you look at the show, he actually was wearing a jacket of some sort. So kind of interesting how it's a completely different design. Not sure why they did that unless they're planning on making him appear in some future episodes of the TV show. Still kind of a strange choice though. Speaking of returning characters, we get a new legacy version of Ronin, which actually does appear in the show, spoilers for the island, but this one does not have any printing on the back of the head, unlike some other ones which feature the strap printing, but it's totally understandable because he just has the standard hairpiece, and lifting up the mask here, we have a very suitable expression for Ronin right there, smiling. So this one definitely fits the character. Definitely a really good variant to get. It essentially is a legacy version of his original outfit that he appeared in during the Possession wave. So it is nice to get a callback for the minifigure here, and it is very accurate while being more detailed. The Overlord here also gets a brand new design with a new chest and head print, which definitely evokes his appearance from Rebooted.
Despite being a Season 2 focused set, this two-armed version of the Overlord is most similar to the original Overlord minifigure that we got all the way back in 2014 for the rebooted line. Some of the earlier legacy versions of the Overlord featured four arms and were closer to the four-armed version of Possessed Garmadon from the early 2013 Final Battle waves, whereas this one definitely evokes this version of the figure. It would have been nice to have gotten an updated skirt piece, although seeing the same ghost trail with the dual molded black and transparent purple definitely works as well.
Finally, we got a new version of Misako as well for returning characters. Basically the same one, except this one has a different colored outfit for the upper torso here.
Of course, getting a new version of Misako is nice, but it's really mostly for just people who did not already own the previous one from the Temple of Airjitsu. Strangely enough, in the TV show, the most recent episodes featured Misako, but in the older outfit, despite having a new redesign.
We also get Clutch Powers, who is basically unchanged since his original appearance in 2019 for a minifigure pack. However, he does feature a side strap bag here instead of featuring his typical leg belt piece that he had for the 2019 element. New for 2021, we're also getting a slew of legacy ghosts. Specifically, this is supposed to represent Gultar, but unfortunately, they all have the same printing, and essentially the only thing different are the choices of armor pieces and the wraps used for the heads.
They did actually reintroduce the ghost sword piece here, dual molded in a brand new color, although I do feel like instead of spending the budget to bring back that mold in a brand new color, they probably could have used the budget to give us at least a few different prints for the characters, given that this here is supposed to be Soul Archer, and he looks basically nothing like his original counterpart.
I'm honestly just kind of surprised that they chose to specifically bring back the ghostly sword element, even recoloring it in a new mold, rather than just, I don't know, allocating that mold budget to maybe the ghost armor piece to bring back, or the ghost head piece, or even just different prints for the faces of the ghosts. I definitely would have taken different prints for these guys over just a new sword piece because, let's face it, they definitely didn't need to do this, and they could have just used one of these standard sword pieces just recolored in green. Of course, alongside the Ninjago City Garden set, we got a host of new civilian minifigures. You can see them very quickly right here. These are basically just standard city minifigures though, nothing too much to talk about them. And unfortunately, they do not use any new torsos or legs other than this one minifigure here, which was made to represent the Ice Planet Ice Cream Shop. Strangely enough, in an original version of this minifigure that was shown off in a trading card, he actually featured the Ice Planet logo on his chest here, but unfortunately it looks like for whatever reason they changed the minifigure to just have a different logo, and unfortunately the torso no longer has any callbacks to the original Ice Planet line. Definitely feels like a bit of a mixed opportunity if they're already making a new torso anyways. We also get some little kid minifigures as well, nothing new in terms of torso prints. And in terms of the other legacy villains, we got a brand new Hypnobrai minifigure. He is currently exclusive to the Epic Battle set, although he actually will not be remaining exclusive as I predicted, and he will be appearing in the 4+ Kai's Fire Bike coming on later this summer.
Finally, we got one more member of the Anachondrite cultists. This one is Izor, an upgrade from his previous form, although sadly we did not actually get any of the ones wearing helmets because that mold has been discontinued. Again, I almost feel like it would have been better to maybe instead of bringing back the sword, bring back the head mold for the Anachondrite cultists so we could get a little bit more variety than now 3 of the same character across these sets, and I'm sure there will be many more. What is nice though is that we got the mascot or civilian version of Chen, which I have displayed next to the villainous form coming from the Ninjago City Gardens. Finally, in what appears to be a sneak preview for the summer, we got a new Deepstone Legacy Zane outfit. I guess this is supposed to represent both the Deepstone and the Skybound suits. This one is really nice to get, albeit a little bit early. Kind of interesting seeing this appear first before any of the other ninja. But I do have a major problem with this. Why would LEGO release this new version of Zane before doing another new version of him for the Legacy 2 lineup? Seems like a strange choice to me. Alright, so now we've summed up every single brand new Ninjago Legacy set, as well as all the minifigures. It's time to give my final opinions on the 4 major points. Starting off with number 1, the quality of the builds. Generally, I will say quality is very high, and this is definitely bolstered by the fact that Ninjago City Gardens has a place in this list. However, of course, as you saw, I was not without some complaints. I do kind of wish that Jay got a focus vehicle other than just his standard mech, because I really was liking the pattern of the focus on each of the core ninja getting a pretty substantial set, or at least the core 4 original ninja. We've got Kai, we've got Zane, we've got Cole, and then we kind of have this for Jay, but I mean, this is nowhere near the level of the other sets, specifically because it is a 4+ set. And speaking of some of the quality of the builds, I really do wish, as I mentioned, that the Overlord Dragon had some sort of a fabric wing component, rather than just recycling the old wing component, which quite frankly feels very outdated. It's basically the same technique that they used on the original Golden Dragon in 2013, and honestly, you would think that LEGO is a little bit better than that at this point. I kind of would have wanted something a little bit more from this dragon, especially because a lot of people have been really wanting this to be depicted in a LEGO set for such a long time, and honestly, a lot of parts about it are really great. I love the detail on the underside, the tendrils on the top wings. It's just the wings themselves that feel a little bit lackluster, especially when compared to a lot of the other fantastic Ninjago dragons out there. And honestly, I would have been fine if, say, the price points of Kai's car and the Overlord Dragon swapped, because conversely, I didn't feel like this needed to be that beefed up. They probably could have done a smaller Kai's car as a $30 set and had an example of them doing still a good set but at a much cheaper price point than before, and instead taking the budget for this set and putting it into the Overlord Dragon. I only just wish that LEGO had a little bit more faith in villain sets. If you notice, this is our first villain-styled Legacy set. All of the other Legacy sets in the past have been hero-focused. I honestly just really wish it'd have a little bit more faith in the villain stuff and be willing to give us larger villain sets, because I think that a lot of stuff like this really warrants it. But then moving on to some of the other stuff here, I think the epic battle sets are a fun concept to have a conflict in a box of a hero and a villain facing off for only $10. I cannot complain about value there. That being said, I do think it's a little bit unfortunate that for half of these sets, the villain minifigures are basically just recycled from other sets. I really would have preferred it if they instead had done something a little bit like giving us a unique minifigure in some of them. Specifically, the Ninjroid here is, again, just the standard Ninjroid that you can get in many of the other Legacy sets. Would have liked to see some sort of a revamped Legacy General Cryptor maybe, especially if it's a one-on-one battle. And the same with the skeleton here for Kai's battle Whiplash. I do want to note that yes, people may say in the comments, this skeleton is technically different than the Whiplash that we got in previous Legacy sets. There is a little bit of difference in printing on the front facial features. However, I will say it's very clearly just a non-exclusive variant. It's kind of just a strange printing choice that they decided to alter on this specific figure. But then speaking about quality, we got an excellent minifigure battle pack here with the Tournament of Elements set. The build is actually very, very close to what we saw in show. And I also don't have many complaints about Cole's Rotojet here, which is very much a substantial improvement, even though when I first saw it, I wasn't sure whether or not it was that big of an improvement. The other major upgrade, probably the biggest upgrade out of all of these so far, is the fantastic Zane's Titan mech. I have nothing but good things to say about this one. Yes, the original set had a conflict between this mech and another mech, which was nice to get, but honestly, the way that they improved this with working knees for a large-scale LEGO mech just blows away my expectations. I was very thrilled when I built the set. It's probably one of my favorite sets out of this entire lot. Well, of course, not including the fantastic city gardens. So with that, in terms of build quality, I think I'm going to give this entire wave an 8 out of 10. Definitely bolstered by this fantastic Ninjago City Gardens, which by itself is a 10 out of 10. And it is dragged down a little bit by a few disappointing details, as I mentioned with the X1 Ninja Charger having Jay's mech be 4+ instead of allotting it to a different set, and just having these epic battle sets, which the builds are really just nothing to talk about, and I do wish that the minifigures were a little bit better for those. We got a ninja, but in an outfit that didn't really make too much sense, and then a repeat villain, or in only one case, a brand new villain. The rest of these sets are alright, but they're not major improvements, except for the Titan mech here, which I do feel was a major improvement, but then again, it has its own set of complaints by not including the Ghost mech to battle, which I think was the reason why a lot of people bought that set in the first place. But I think with that, we can move on to the second point, which is focusing on diversity and improvements over the original sets. As I mentioned, this, major improvement. This, not so much, but it's legacy, so I'll give it a chance. This one also feels like not so much of a major improvement, whereas these two sets definitely are. So where does that really leave us in terms of improvements over legacy designs? Honestly, a bit of a mixed bag. I will say I was honestly a little bit disappointed with the changes made to the X1 Ninja Charger. I felt like a lot of them were unnecessary, and I do feel that this really did warrant something a little different than just a 4+ set. So I'm going to give the diversity point, or I guess in this case it's more improvements over what came before point, a 6 out of 10. I do think that that may be a little bit harsh, but I think comparing it against other fantastic legacy waves, where every single set just hit it out of the park in terms of being a major improvement, this just feels like some minor incremental improvements, but nothing too major except where this is concerned, and maybe even, I guess, the Tournament of Elements set. I do feel like this point will be continuing, or this trend will be continuing as we go further and further into Legacy, because of course, it's very easy to make a 2011 build look a lot better with 2021 building techniques, but you can't really say the same for, say, a 2015 or 2016 build being improved. I feel like that was the point where sets were already being pretty good, so not too many improvements you can make there. But then we can move on to point number 3, the new minifigures. And honestly, there's not a lot I can complain about either. We got a lot of the missing Elemental Masters, now we're just missing one more. We got a brand new Serpentine featuring the Hypnobrai in Legacy form, which is really nice. New Ghosts for Legacy, which are a bit of a downgrade, but it is nice to get Legacy Ghosts. And of course, we get Ronin featured back in a set after a long time, a new version of the Overlord, which calls back to his rebooted appearance, and brand new golden versions of the Ninja, which look fantastic. We also get Misako in a set after a while. Finally, we get the Mechanic in a set. And all in all, I would say the diverse range of minifigures, both from older parts of Ninjago's history and newer parts, come together very well. And in that case, I'm going to give this one a 9 out of 10 in terms of minifigures. This is the most variety that we've gotten in a long time for Ninjago Legacy, or just Ninjago in general, and I'm very pleased with the amount of different minifigures that we got for this. Of course, it's not without its cons. Again, as I mentioned, the epic battle ninja suits don't make too much sense to me, not really sure what they're supposed to represent in show, and then just getting the casual versions of the ninja where only one of them really does feel new. Nia's casual design is basically the same as the old movie one, but actually even a little bit worse because it doesn't have the gene printing. Cole's casual design is again very similar to the previous one. I do think that there were things that they could have done a little bit better here, but all in all, I'm pretty happy with these minifigures. And the one thing I also want to note is that if the Deepstone Zane is an indication of the rest of the ninjas' Deepstone suits for Legacy, I am very excited for that. But I just do have one question. LEGO, where is the Legacy 2 / rebooted or tournament Zane? We really need that one as a minifigure. But then we can move on to the final point, point number 4, which is affordability. Now, I will say that affordability is, again, kind of across the board here. The $300 Ninjago City Gardens is definitely not something I would call affordable, but is it worth the $300 price tag? Absolutely. As I saw when I was talking into the in-depth details, you'd be lucky to be paying $400 or $500 for a LEGO Star Wars or license set of this size, and this just gives you so much more variety and internal detail than you would expect from some of those other sets. So while the price is high, I think it's definitely deserved. Similar things that I feel like really do deserve their price: the Overlord Dragon for $30 featuring a new mold for the head and having a generally very good construction other than the wings, I think is very much worth $30. In fact, I would have been happy paying $40 for a dragon of this scale. And the same thing goes for the $30 Tournament of Elements. While the build isn't much to write home about, I think the minifigures finally getting the missing Elemental Masters more than makes up for that, so I'm pretty happy with the price here. In terms of the prices for the other ones, I don't really know if this one was worth as much as it was. $50 for Kai's X1 Ninja Charger actually being a slight downgrade from the original set just kind of leaves a bad taste in my mouth. I really do wish that this was a little bit cheaper or occupied a cheaper price point. I'm not necessarily saying the build is not worth the amount. Of course, the amount of pieces that go into it are definitely worth the price, but I do feel like the end product isn't really worth $50, feels more like $40 or $45, and I would have been much happier paying $30 for a scaled down car if that meant the price point could have gone to the Overlord Dragon instead. Zane's Titan mech, while the price is steep, $70 for just one mech, I do feel like it is deserved because of the quality of the build. I do, however, think it would have been nice to maybe say do an $100 set and instead scale this down a little bit but include the Ghost mech as well, because I do remember that being a very fun part of the original set. $20 for the Juniors mech. I mean, it is Juniors, so I can't complain too much, but again, just more of my complaints lie with this being Juniors and Jay not getting an actual fully fledged vehicle for this wave, especially for 10 years in Ninjago. Would have been nice to get a main vehicle for each of the 4 original Ninja. And then the $10 epic battle sets, again, I feel like the value is a little mixed because you do get unique ninja variants, but they don't really mean anything in the show. They're not really special stuff. As I mentioned, I would have preferred for them to do more legacy outfits. It would have been nice to get a Blacksmith Kai or Battle Damaged Zane or maybe a Pirate Jay or something. Something that relays back to something seen in the show, especially for the 10 years of Ninjago, especially for a variant that we probably won't see in the future. So, bit of a mixed bag there. The villains are also hit or miss for the epic battle sets, so definitely not one that's really great in value despite getting 2 minifigures, so I'm going to say value is a little mixed on that. And for Cole's jet here, having it be priced at the price point it was at, I think is alright. It's certainly better than Kai's car, but again, not a fantastic price and definitely a lot more than you'd be paying for the original set, which basically has the same feature and works the same way. So in terms of value, I'm going to give this wave a 7 out of 10. I think this is great value. This is pretty decent value. This is great value. This is pretty good value, and the rest are just all right. I do feel like, again, having this set be in the wave definitely bolsters that ranking a little bit, gives it a few extra points just because of how good this is and how good it is in terms of value as well. So I think a 7 out of 10 is pretty deserved. But with that, we've about wrapped up our coverage of the entire Winter 2021 Ninjago Legacy Wave. What do you guys think? Let me know down in the comments below. Do you own any of these sets? Which ones are your favorite? And do you agree with my rankings and points? Finally, I will place this one above the island in terms of ranking, mostly because of the wide range of sets that we get. Obviously, I think this definitely pushes it above the island wave. I wouldn't feel happy saying that the island is better than this set. And I think all in all, these are very good representations and revamps of what came before, while offering something a little bit new, and the minifigure selection is hard to beat.
Alright, and with that, we've about summed up our look at the Winter 2021 Legacy Wave. What do you think of this wave? Let me know down in the comments below, and be sure to check out many of the other videos because there will be a new Ninjago review/ranking coming out every single week. Next week, stay tuned for the Season 13 Master of the Mountain sets. I'll talk to you again soon, and bye-bye for now.